It's been nearly 3 months since Helene impacted the Carolinas. Today, for the first time, tourists being welcomed back to Lake Lure and adjacent Chimney Rock, some of the hardest hit areas, some of which still remain closed. We're bringing Christmas to those impacted by Helene on this special edition of the Carolina Weather Group. It's Saturday, December the 14th, to a live special edition of the Carolina Weather Group. I'm James Brierton here at Rambling Bald on the north side of Lake Lure in the western North Carolina mountains. We've got WCNC Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich and the Carolina Weather Group's Dan Whitaker outside the 1927 Lake Lure Inn. That is the site of a special event today, welcoming back tourists to the Lake Lure and Chimney Rock areas for the first time since Helene, an area that was devastated by the storm and the flooding along the Broad River. Chimney Rock itself still remains closed. Coming up in this special program, we're going to hear from Cityserve, the organization that put on today's event. We were able to take a bus tour today into Chimney Rock. It still remains closed to tourists, only open to locals because the road to Batcave still remains washed out. Buildings are still unstructurally sound, and while some buildings miraculously looked like they were barely touched, others looked like they may not be recoverable. Some of those buildings already gone, either due to the natural destruction of the flooding of the Broad River or the cleanup that came through afterwards to start the rebuilding process. We'll talk more about the rebuilding process behind me here coming up in a few minutes. But Brad, I was really impacted as we were on that bus tour today because seeing some of that damage for the first time, going inside this community that still all these months later remains cut off. What was it that struck you the most as you look back on that bus tour?
Yeah, I tell you what, that tour was pretty eye-opening. I kind of knew what to expect, seeing satellite imagery, drone footage beforehand, but seeing it firsthand, it really was more than I even expected. Plus, knowing that, I'd been to this area so many times, it was almost unrecognizable in parts. And there's been a lot of work. You can tell when you could drive through the town, some of the buildings have been cleaned, they've been completely gutted and rebuilt, but then other parts, it just seems like it's such a long ways away. What really struck me was just the creek and riverbed. The broad riverbed just does not look the same. It was this narrow, babbling river with trees and boulders around it. Now it's this big, gaping, like gravel pit. It just looks unrecognizable from the last time I was here and really from the times I've been here in the past. And, one of the interesting things about doing this bus tour, and I thought this was a great way to do it, is they had business owners on each bus basically narrating the tour because they were here describing what they saw, what they went through, what's going on. And our tour guide actually kind of broke down a little bit because as we passed the place where she got married and actually where they had the reception, it was, going to be a complete loss. And she broke down briefly talking about that. So I thought that was very humbling, but also it was nice to hear it right from somebody who lives here. And the other thing, my son being with me, he came and he was like, "Dad, I don't even recognize where we're at." He was really like kind of shocked himself, like he couldn't recognize any of these locations. And it does bring me back to the day that the storm, started and we knew it was going to be bad, was starting to see some of these images and pictures coming out of the mountains. And you knew how bad it was basically because of the rain ahead of time. That rain ahead of time really set the stage for this. And just knowing this area around Chimney Rock, the lake, where it's such a narrow canyon, you've got several tributaries going into there. You just know geographically, that this is a very flash flood prone area. And in the past that something like this likely happened. You just never expect that you're going to see something this historic in real time, firsthand in your lifetime. So those are the things that really struck with me going on the bus tour. And it really was amazing to see how resilient these communities are, and especially these business owners.
Yeah, the emotion today was really interesting. It was kind of smiles and jubilation on the outside. I think friendliness of seeing outsiders come and support those local businesses who missed out, as you said, on their tourism season. And then you find those reminders along the way, the pain and the sorrow and the sadness that's still underneath the surface. In a few moments, we're going to hear from Evan Fisher about what some of that debris looked like from above as you're continuing to look at some of the ground video we shot today on the bus. We know the Flowering Bridge, one of those those areas that was a tourist destination is largely destroyed. And unlike Brad, I procrastinated for many years in coming up to actually visit the area. This was my first time here. I regret not coming earlier, and I'm optimistic and hopeful for what the future holds. We'll get back over to Brad and Dan in just a moment, but let's talk a little bit about where I'm standing here on the north side of the lake over by Rambling Bald. This is where the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has set up their post. They're taking all of the debris that they're finding in the lake and they're barging it down to this one spot to take it out of the lake and either grind it up into a mulch or take it down to a landfill. This is both a cleanup effort on the surface, but also looking under the water for any items that could become a hazard or debris, say, to when boats return to the water. So we had a chance to talk to Brad Morgan. He is overseeing the operation both here and across so much of the region. Here's a bit of my conversation with him.
So the ultimate goal is for us to remove all of the floating debris from the lake itself. Anything that was event-related, storm-related debris, to get that removed. So in terms of the operation, what you see behind me is kind of the final destination of a lot of the debris that's been removed. So we've got 3 working barges out on the lake. On those working barges we have a long-reach excavator. So what they'll do is they'll set up, they'll float, they'll pick up that debris. We also have some floating work barges as well. So they'll pick that debris out of the water, they'll place it on that barge. Then once they load up the barge to its capacity, then they'll sail it over here to this location. And then another trio of excavators will then remove that debris off the barge. And then from there, they'll sort it. They'll try to sort it into vegetative debris if we can separate the trees, stumps, anything along those lines, and construction debris, anything that's, an old dock, any lumber, things along those lines. And if we find any other items, as you can see off to the side here, we've got refrigerators, hot water heaters, propane tanks, etc. We'll separate those.
You're stationed out of Wilmington, so we're in your home state. Can you describe a little bit for me, maybe both as a colonel but also as a human being, what it's like to have this disaster in your backyard, so to say, as we're here in North Carolina?
I mean, first and foremost, the heart goes out to those that have been impacted, personally by this storm. Obviously, I think it was much more devastating than a lot of us expected it to be. And as you kind of drive around western North Carolina, you can see the impacts that, not only the winds had from the storm, but also just the sheer amount of rainfall, which led to, some pretty sizable floods of record through many of the watersheds and many of the rivers and creeks and streams out here. I wish it wouldn't have happened, but I'm glad that we are here and we have an opportunity to be able to assist, as the Army Corps of Engineers, in support of FEMA and in support of the local communities. Our mission is to help, recover this debris, help get this lake and this town back to kind of pre-storm conditions as quickly as we can. And of course, the first step of that is to try to work to remove the remnants of the storm, which is, a lot of this floating debris that you can see around us. You'll see on the side of the roads or even on people's homes and driveways, etc.
How many days, how many hours a week are these crews out here working?
For the most part, pending any type of maintenance issues or extreme weather, we have had a couple of extremely windy days where we're not able to operate the excavators out on the barges. But generally, since we started work, even once they started mobilization, they've been pretty much here working, not 24 hours a day. We're working during daylight hours generally, but they've worked every day since November the 4th.
Is there an idea? You mentioned getting the lake and the community back to some semblance of where it was before. Is there a timeline expectation on when that goal might be achieved?
It's going to take a long time, another 6 months plus. But I mean, for us, in terms of what we've contracted with, our contractor here, kind of that period of performance takes us through the end of March or April just for the floating waterway debris. So we estimated about 22,000 cubic yards of debris just within the lake itself. I think now we've removed somewhere between 16 and 17,000 cubic yards so far. A lot of that was in a very concentrated debris field that I think a lot of people may have seen on social media or just some of the reporting early on in the event. We've removed that floating debris field, and now it's just a matter of us being able to get to all these other items that have now kind of washed up to the shore. So it was easy to get that large concentrated pile of debris. Now it's just going to be a little bit slower, a little more methodical, a little more deliberate as we continue to do those collection efforts.
And you can see behind me right now, guys, they are removing more debris, loading it up into a dump truck. They'll take it to a staging area they have down the way, and eventually, again, some of this will move into the landfill. Well, you know, you've seen a little bit of what they're doing here on the north side of the lake. We showed you video from inside Chimney Rock, where some of that debris flowed down to this point, also knowing that debris flowed down from Batcave, the town up the river even more. But now, to give you a bird's eye view, let's check in. Evan Fisher was on our Carolina Weather Group podcast, and he was doing some satellite analysis for us to kind of show us what that damage looked like from above. Let's play that clip for you.
And you can see here how the Flowering Bridge was unfortunately taken down by the strong waters of the Broad River. And even just another quarter mile upriver, it's remarkable to see, remarkable what happened, that the power of water is unbelievable. There used to be some buildings in here, and if we toggle off, we'll toggle off this imagery, you can see what it used to look like. And this gives you an idea of how much that river changed.
Wow.
You know, it really did widen to a couple hundred feet wide. And it used to just be 50 to 75 feet, and that water was raging through here, taking out buildings along the way, taking out large sections of road. And as we get into downtown Chimney Rock, you can see why there's so much of an issue. There used to be buildings in here, there used to be a road, and you can see they were already working on the road within a few days of the storm, 10 days post-storm. But Chimney Rock was hit very hard, and this is one of the places I wanted to focus on.
So you could see some of the damage that Chimney Rock sustained from above, and an event like today has been weeks and months in the making in order to get at least one roadway back reopened, power, internet, running water, the things you would need to sustain an event like today. And that has been the effort of so many people, but among them, the North Carolina Parks and Duke Energy. They explained what it took to get those utilities back up and running.
I think, you know, the helicopters are indicative of the situation we're in. You know, we don't have road access back to the park. The only way to put in those large poles and that type of infrastructure is to come in through helicopter. So that's, you know, we're trying to face these challenges as best we can, trying to work through sort of the whatever technology we can to get that done. So that's exciting to see these poles in, and that's sort of a big step. I mean, this is challenging times. You know, to see, you know, places that you know, are, and I've been with the division for 24 years, so not just the parks, but the communities, to see the impact and to see the lives that not only have been impacted but lost is really tough. And we know these communities are struggling to get back to a sense of normalcy.
Having to return to helicopters in order to reach some of these areas, Chimney Rock Park being, of course, a tourist attraction right inside this region. So you saw video there of them having to bring in those telephone poles by helicopter. Let's bring back in Brad Panovich, who's down on the other side of the lake. Brad, earlier today, had a chance to talk to the organizer of this Cityserve event. In a moment here, I'd like to play a little bit of the interview that they had together so you can learn a little bit more about what drew them to this area, what motivated them to do that interview, or excuse me, do today's program. So let's hear from Brad and Todd about what today was all about.
All right, everybody, Brad Panovich here with Todd Lemplayer from Cityserve. You guys have done some amazing work here in Chimney Rock and Lake Lure. Tell everybody a little bit about all of the man hours and work that you guys have done here.
Well, Brad, thank you so much for being here. And today's a very festive day for us. This is not the culmination of what we're doing. For the last 8 weeks, we've had over 1,200 volunteers from all across the country come to Chimney Rock, have logged in over 67,000 volunteer man hours in Chimney Rock alone.
That's amazing.
And people are being able to see all the beautiful things that have been done in Chimney Rock today.
So talk a little bit about, you got all the businesses, some are here, some are over at Trine Equestrian Center. How important is this for them? Because, I mean, 100% of their livelihood is tourism, which has been non-existent since the storm.
You know, the reality of this is, Brad, is that this area survives on tourism. And so for Cityserve, it was important that we, with our friends as Spokes of Hope and 1A Disaster Relief and the others who have come alongside us, World Vision, it was important for us to stand up the business community first. Seems the vast majority of the tourism dollars keep this area alive. And so today, this is about life. This is about saying, you know what? we took a shot, but we're still standing. We took a licking and keep on picking, as Timex used to say. And that's really what this is about for us today.
That's incredible. So, I mean, we're in the holidays, we're celebrating Christmas, but this isn't the end, right? This is kind of just the kickoff of what is going to be several next steps. What are the next steps for you guys and for the town of Chimney Rock?
You know, for Cityserve, our motto in disaster relief is we stay long and go deep. And so for us, we're going to be here until the businesses are up and running. And hopefully by spring, they'll be back better than ever. That's really our hope. That's our prayer with Cityserve.
Brad, you had a chance to talk not only to the event organizer, but also some folks from the NASCAR community who came on up to show their support as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I would tell you what, the NASCAR community has been great. You know, you've probably all seen the videos on social of Greg Biffle flying his personal helicopter up here repeatedly, just doing amazing work. But all of the NASCAR teams have been really supportive, because one thing about NASCAR is they love their fans, but they also have the infrastructure and logistics to kind of transport stuff. They've got trucks and vehicles. And so today we had a couple of the Xfinity racers come up here, and Cole Custer was actually one, brought his car up there, and part of his Stewart Haas team, they were up here to kind of support this area. Even though they hadn't personally been here, they wanted to do something. It was great. They took time out of their day to drive up here and kind of support the community.
All right, tell us a little bit about why you came over and you're supporting this great event.
Well, I mean, obviously Chimney Rock and all the NASCAR teams really, we're all based out of Charlotte, and it's, you know, not too far away. Really, it took us 2 hours to get up here, but it's just however we can support. You know, there's so much happened here, and everybody's been working so hard, and any little part that we can do to donate supplies or bring some joy to people's faces means a ton. So bringing this car up here and seeing everybody definitely means a lot.
When did you first realize that Helene was going to be like a really big disaster?
Really, and not until it hit. I mean, it's probably a lot for a lot of people too. I mean, it's just when you're in North Carolina, you just don't expect, you know, to be hit by a hurricane that hard, especially when you're inland. So it was definitely one of the craziest storms I think we've had.
Talk a little bit about how NASCAR is giving back to North Carolina as well.
Well, I mean, just, you know, as an industry and our teams, and we were able to bring supplies together through teams and haulers and stuff like that, bring supplies up here, necessary supplies, you know, water, food, stuff like that. And obviously Greg Biffle was a huge part of the rescue efforts and supply efforts with his helicopter. Just, you know, NASCAR is, you know, we're all competitors, but we're also a family. You know what I mean? We're with the same people, you know, 38 weekends a year, and being able to come together and support a cause like this is super special.
Talk a little bit about why you came over to help support Chimney Rock and Lake Lure.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously it's an unbelievable cause, and growing up in North Carolina my whole life, and being from Charlotte, I have a lot of passion about the state and just everything that goes on. I grew up coming to the mountains as a kid, and, you know, the devastation that happened up here is unbelievable.
It's really good to see those guys driving on up from the greater Charlotte area, where so many of them are housed, to again continue to show their support, and other organizations doing as well too, because today is really all about supporting those small local businesses. Bring in Carolina Weather Group's Dan Whitaker. Dan had a chance, I think, to dine and support a local restaurant himself, as well as, of course, attend today's market. Dan, tell us a little bit about your day in Lake Lure.
So it's been really nice to be around the area, seeing people supporting the businesses. I got to go out and have lunch at Fay Nectar, which is a really nice restaurant right on the Broad River there, right beside the bridge into Chimney Rock. And yeah, people seem to be in good spirits. They were really happy to have people here supporting their business. They were happy to have they were serving full food, full drinks, and yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing throughout the entire day. Specifically, just the amount of people that wanted to come to this today. I mean, the lines being hours long just to get into the area, and people are happy, people are grateful, and people are very supportive. So that was really nice to get to do that myself at one of the restaurants that's open.
Dan, you followed Helene from when it made landfall in Florida all the way to our home state here in the Carolinas, and you witnessed and documented so much of that devastation. What's it like for you to be back here today?
So this is actually the first time I've been back to Western NC, this far out at least, to a similar area where I was when Helene hit. So I was in Brevard, in between Brevard and Asheville, and being kind of just down the road, it's definitely it's a little bit of mixed emotions because on one side, it's nice to see events like this happening, people coming and supporting buildings and people trying to rebuild and get their stuff back together. But also, the day Helene hit and communications were down and the power lines came down, the trees came down, I'm still seeing so much of that on the way into here that, it can't help but ask, how long is this going to take till we get back to the Chimney Rock we once knew? And to Western NC that we once knew. So, yeah, it's a little, like I said, mixed emotions.
Yeah, mixed emotions. And, I think that's exactly what the residents and the shop owners were feeling today. Dan, I had a chance to talk with a woman who for a long time owned and operated an inn, and now she's the manager at that inn. And take a listen to how she described some of her emotions.
Total devastation. And what does that mean? Something I had never experienced in all my life. I had no idea. Our property was only damaged lightly with a mudslide in the back. It's still standing. We just don't have a road or a sewer. So we're going to be closed for several years. But you're going to go on tours today that actually get to see the town of Chimney Rock and what we've done in 10 weeks, or what God has done through people, through volunteers. We've had over 1,200 volunteers come through our town and help us with over 67,000 man hours. And to see what's gone on in the last 10 weeks is amazing. And it's just been by people wanting to help. And it's exciting, and it's going to be bigger and better than before the flood, and we're excited. We really are. So it's exciting to just be mingling with people, telling our story and telling them there's hope. And we're just excited about today.
And as you heard there, the hope that we will all be back real soon. But really, Brad and Dan, I think I was touched by her smile, her jubilation, if you will, on seeing people back in their town. Any last words from that side of the lake before we wrap things up here, guys?
Okay, what I was going to say is I came in last night, and so one of the things that struck me, James, was just the employees here at the hotel. They've been basically hosting just recovery workers and people that have been moving in and working recovery. This has been the first time they've had like a big mass of tourists come in. And so they were just super excited to see people other than the people that have been here for the last 2 months. And so the look on their face and the way they lit up, like, hey, this is kind of the way it used to be, was kind of nice to see that. We ate at an Italian place on the other side of the lake here. And I mean, the waitress could not have been like nicer and happier just to see people back in this area. That's kind of the reason. It's like one thing, like, and I wanted to go eat here. I wanted to buy stuff, free food here today. I told my son, we're not buying food. Let's go inside and get something to eat in there where we have to pay, because I really wanted to put something back because they really do deserve it and they desperately need it.
Well said. Well said. Dan and Brad, thank you so much for joining us from that side of the lake. We're going to wrap things up here on the north side of the lake, where the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers will be continuing the cleanup effort, not only here at Lake Lure, but across the region as we continue through the holiday season. As we mentioned, if you wish to donate and support Cityserve, who hosted today's event, you can do so on their website. And we hope many of you will be back here real soon for a proper tourism season. Until then, you can check out so many of these small businesses. They're down at the Tryon Equestrian Center. Our director today was Jared Smith, our editor Peter Plenamente. Thanks to Starlink for our uplinks here from the lake. I hope you all have a wonderful and safe holiday season. We'll be back with our weekly show, the Carolina Weather Group, covering weather, science, technology, and more from across the Carolinas and beyond on the other side of the holidays. And of course, if any weather pops up before then, you know where to find us, right here on YouTube and wherever it is you get audio podcasts. I'm James Brierton. Be well.